So where did we leave off?
So, yeah, I'll give it. I mean, I think because people mentioned to me like because we talked a bit more philosophically, so probably in this leg, I think if we can focus more on the practical side, so
Okay.
for on a layman's level, so for, digestible for everyone, where I guess everyone might have certain health issues or whatever. So briefly, we're talking about like in the subcontinent community. Diabetes, for example, is very prevalent.
Yes.
And the history behind that's really interesting. Like I was watching a video where they were discussing that because the British colonized, the famines happened, our body had to adapt at that time. That's why, like because of lack of food, the body is trying to preserve as much sugar or whatever. And then because we live in a society now where food's so accessible, right? Alhamdulillah, in some ways, so that has obviously caused a big spike in diabetes for many people in the West as well. So I guess on a practical level, if someone has certain health issues, what would you suggest would be the sort of right channel to take? Because obviously, like I also mentioned, I was talking to someone about like the lifestyle factors as well. So like when you go to a normal doctor and maybe say you have a headache, usually they're just like, I don't know, rest, drink water and have Panadol or whatever, and that's it. Brush it off.
Yeah.
And perhaps like maybe you can articulate where I guess Islamic medicine, it's they look at all the lifestyle factors like pollution apparently, like your air quality plays a role.
Yes.
Look at your sleep.
Which the air here in Melbourne is not very good.
So we have to
The
do
pollen,
hijrah.
the pollen situation here is really bad. Subhanallah, and I've come to, it's my 6th time here in Melbourne. I usually don't have congestion allergy issues. This year I have, and my eldest daughter has had it too. And I went to Sydney last weekend for just 4 days. I got there like Friday afternoon, like Asr time. I had the evening with some friends. We had dinner, rested, alhamdulillah, woke up in the morning, and I just emptied my nose one time, and I didn't have any congestion the whole time in Sydney. And now, a few days back now, I'm already feeling congested again. So this, and I normally don't have any allergy issues. Like it's maybe I'm not used to it still, but
I mean, a lot of doctors, if you
air is big.
Tell them that what you just described, they'll say, I don't know, take Claritin.
Oh, Claritin, yeah, I take
this and
Claritin,
that, which is
antihistamine.
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe a place for it and whatever, but obviously we're talking more about the underlying situation might cause that and understanding that on a deeper level. So, there's so many deeper reasons as to why we have certain symptoms, like even skin issues for a reason. Like, for someone like I know my mom had stuff like that, and she was just told go to a specialist, take some tablets, whatever, and deal with it. But I know there's so much depth in Islamic medicine regarding skin issues, why it happens, seasons, this and that. So I'm just to tie it back in, like, what would be the best channel to get started when it comes to understanding someone's health on a deeper level, on a very practical level? Where should we start? What channel should we take? What should we learn about?
Well, in terms of channel, the Quranic invitation with these types of things is فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So ask those of dhikr, which is basically the ulama of the respective field, if you do not know. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. Ask the people of dhikr if you don't know. So obviously, we want to learn ourselves. There's a modicum of understanding that we should all have about our health and what affects our health at different levels of influence, and about our own nature, our own temperament, and what we specifically maybe are sensitive to, and so forth and so on. But working with a professional and learning from them, or doing a course maybe, like, I hate to kind of market myself, but like I do courses, and I'm sure maybe Sidi Ahmed does courses too. But these are things that we encourage people to do the same way we do classes in tajweed, we do classes in fiqh, we do classes in aqidah, we do kind of the fardul ayn classes that we were talking about earlier with some brothers. Fardul ayn is the most essential knowledge that it means it's individually obligatory. Fardul ayn is fard on the individual, like it's fard. It's fard, obligatory to have certain knowledge. Most of you probably have it. I imagine you have it. If not, maybe needs a little bit of support and a little bit of remembering and freshening up. But that knowledge in deen, alhamdulillah, is essential. It's what gives our deen life. Similarly with the ilm al-abdan, there's a fardul ayn, if you will. I'm not making a fardul ayn. I'm not adding to the deen. But it's like this essential kind of like nature of this knowledge that is kind of like fardul ayn. You should have a basic understanding of how diet and digestion works, how sleep works, how the Hakims call it banatul arkan, the daughters of the foundation, the daughters of the pillars, which are basically the lifestyle factors. Banatul arkan. So the daughters of the foundation, what holds the foundation up. Right? The foundation holds up the whole edifice of health. But what holds up the foundation? Banatul arkan. This is sleep. This is exercise. This is diet. This is digestion. There's so many of us talk about diet and what's the best diet? Is it vegetarianism? Is it keto? Is it carnivore? Is it the blood type diet? What's the best diet? Like, there's so much information out there. It's overwhelming.
With digestion, there's a quick question. Like, we just had breakfast and we all just got this tea in our hands. I've heard that tea just straight after food is like a poison. So
It's like a what, sorry?
It's like poison. So what is it? Well, it's like, it's like.
But what kind of tea is it? Depends on what kind of tea it is.
Like any kind of like tea or taking a hot drink or something like that straight after food is like a poison. This is I've been heard with people like religious people like muftis in Pakistan, something like that. Like they have a little bit of like food knowledge or head knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of little hikmah.
Little
say
hikmah.
these words like it's kind of.
Neem Hakim.
Yeah. Even in Pakistan, they say that.
We are surrounded by name.
Is it true? Is it true? Or is it just like how?
There's something about there's something about liquids, like drinking with food is not the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ used to drink between meals, and if he drank, he would drink a little bit, just to help clear the throat or clear the palate. It's not good to drink too much when your stomach is full, because the stomach is the organ of digestion, and it's very acidic. It's very hot. It's very hot. And you want it to be hot and acidic to break down the proteins and everything so that when it moves to the small intestine, it's being absorbed. So you want the stomach to do its job, but if the stomach by itself spontaneously is building a fire and then you're just putting out the fire with liquid, you're working against the body.
Yeah.
Right? So this is part of hikmah, it's understanding, even basic anatomy and physiology, like when I first eat, I'm breaking down food in my mouth, I'm swallowing it, it goes to my stomach, and there it's supposed to break. It's like a furnace. It's like a hot furnace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the most amazing things. Like one of the ayat, we're talking about the signs of God. They say that if you were to pour the contents of your stomach on your skin, it bore a hole. It just burned through your skin. But yeah, it sits your whole entire life in the sac of the stomach. It doesn't burn you from the inside. Because everything has a place. The hikmah of Allah Ta'ala, when things are in their proper place, it's constructive. It works with the constructive principle. It feeds into the vitality and the coherence of the entire organism.
And elements as well, what we observe is inside us, like the fire analogy for the stomach, the furnace.
Yeah, exactly. We have a fire element within us.
So a regular practice in especially subcontinent families, they take chai straight after breakfast.
So one thing, I think the Chinese do it best in terms of that. They'll have ginger tea, and they'll sip on it. Yeah, they'll sip on it after meals. They actually have it before meals too, right? They have it they love ginger. I love ginger. Do you guys like ginger? Yeah. I think ginger is incredible. Probably my favorite herb. I mean, I have a few different herbs, but.
You reckon that's okay after the food? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just make it I would make it strong. Don't add milk and sugar, and just if you can make it just like a ginger tonic, almost like a strong ginger drink. And you can put a bit of honey if you like in it, and just sip on it, and then have it without any sugar between meals to help stimulate digestion as well. Digestion, look, our digestive system is very affected by toxins, and is very affected by our nervous system. And us as Western people, we're burnt out, we're overwhelmed. We just have
Stress.
We're stressed out. Yeah, exactly. Even many of the drugs that we take are stress-based. Cortisone, prednisone, steroids. Right, steroids they're cortisol molecules. It's like a steroid molecule that you're, or just steroid compound. I can't think of the word. Steroid substance that's suppressing the symptoms, right? And suppressing the nervous system as well, and driving you into a type of like fight-flight, stress. It's stress. We have a stress-based civilization. We have stress-based conditions, and we treat the stress with more stress.
Well, just a generic question. Hopefully, it will help us all. I was talking to Tamim as well. People like me, we are 60, close to 60. Me and Saab and me, we are all in that.
A little bit like that.
Sorry? Yeah.
Not counting you, not few of that. So our immune systems, correct me if my terminology is not right, and if I didn't put it right in medical sense, they play an important role in sort of health and all that. Please, can you give us a general guidelines that people like us, keeping at bay these sort of the major diseases which can compromise the due to our compromised immune system, how we can strengthen our immune system? How can we stay on the top of things that we don't have to see doctors?
Yeah, bismillah. So I think the nervous system, working with the nervo-endo-immuno axis, what they call now, endo is the hormones, the endocrine system.
Neuroendocrine system.
So in now it's changing. Now it's coming back home, to the original medicine. But for a while, it's like each field had its own niche. The neurologists, the endocrinologists, the immunologists, they all worked within their own niches. Now you have these integrative fields, not holistic, they call them integrative. But they're saying like, okay, instead of these specific specialties working independently, let's have a psychology, neuro, endo, immunology. There's a whole field like that.
Psycho or psychiatric?
Psychology, similar, right?
Yeah.
But I'm incorporating the psyche, your state of mind, with your nervous system, with your hormones, with your immune system, you see. So I think for here, just to answer the question practically, working with the immune system is tremendously helpful. And what is the main modulator of the of the nervous system? What affects it the most? What rhythm affects it the most? There's rhythm. Circadian rhythm. Allah Ta'ala says, إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternations of night and day, are signs for those of ulul albab, people of lub, people of coreness, depth, of deep understanding. So in Allah Ta'ala's sunnah, right, we have the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we also have the sunnah of God, which is the patterns that He creates creation with. Right? This ada, this customary things that, like gravity is ada. Everything drops down. It'd be amazing if you drop it and went up.
Try higher.
Yeah, maybe if I throw it, it comes back.
Bring your phone.
Manish. It has a case on it, it's okay. But it's like there's a customary things that we're all used to, we just kind of take it for granted, right? One of them, the main one, I believe, one of the main ones is the circadian rhythm, the sleep-wake cycle. And what's interesting about it is that, again, in Din al-Fitra, and I believe in hikmah medicine, we understand day and night backwards from the modern world. It's actually backwards. So, don't overthink it. When does the day start as Australians? When's the day start?
It's like work day. Like
what time? Like what time of day?
8:30, 8 o'clock. Working thing.
As in like most
daylight, right?
Yeah.
Daylight is when the day starts, because that's what's most important, right? Your productivity, like that's when you get out there and do something and be productive and bigger and better and more efficient. It's a very American, very Australian, very Western ethos. But on our perspective, when does the day start?
Maghrib.
Maghrib.
Subhanallah.
In Din al-Fitra. And again, I know it's like psychological, you know, and it's like we're talking philosophical.
I'm very interested to
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
that.
alhamdulillah, God bless you. But like these things will change your life. Wallahi. They're paradigm shifts.
Perspective.
They change the way you relate to yourself and you relate to God and relate to nature. They're paradigm shifts. In our conception, sleep is put forefront from work and effort and striving and toiling. The nighttime precedes the day. There's a great meaning in that. There's significance in that. It's not poetic, merely. And so when the nighttime comes, we pray Maghrib immediately. The sunnah is to pray within the first 20, 30 minutes. And then what should be the mode by which now you're kind of navigating the evening? It's calm, it's measured, it's yin, meaning it's feminine principle. You know, you have these principles, this masculine, feminine principle. Nighttime is a feminine principle. How do you describe feminine principle? It's yielding, it's passive, it's receiving, it's anabolic. Your body is actually strengthening because you're built, you know, people that take anabolic steroids, you know, they get big bulky steroids. It's actually, those guys will sleep 10, 12 hours a night. They're not sleeping at 2 in the morning and watching Netflix and smoking. Those guys that are competitive Olympians that work, 5, 6 hours a day in the gym, they sleep at 8 p.m. They know I can't compete if I'm not getting the best rest possible. 8 o'clock, they're sleeping. And they're building anabolic period. They're getting bigger naturally. So yin time is us being passive. We're not toiling. We're not doing. We're not efforting. We're letting go. It's the time of ibadah. You know, Maghrib is the time of ibadah. You know, Maghrib time, there's adhkar that you can recite from the sunnah and from the mashayikh that you can get. Isha time, family time, it's a time to be intimate with your family, with your kiddos, with your wife. And the sunnah is to sleep right after Isha. That is the sunnah. Right? So here it's difficult now in the summertime, it's quite late, but let's say like in a temperate time of year, like in March, April here probably. What time is Maghrib like? 6, Isha is probably like 7:38.
Yeah. 5:30 is the Maghrib.
5:30 Maghrib.
And then you pray about 6:30, 6:20 is Aisha sometime.
6:20. Okay,
It's
so
quite early.
yeah, it's quite early. So imagine, just as a thought experiment. Yeah, we're living 100 years ago, before phones, clocks, before watches, before any of this stuff. We just went by what we observed, which is the fitrah. Right? Because the prayer times are in accordance not to the beeping of the app, but where's the sun in the sky? That's the prayer times, right? Like how many of you, if you didn't have, if it's late Asr time, can you calculate the Qibla? Late Asr, almost Maghrib. You're traveling, and the sun is maybe like this much off the horizon. Can you calculate the Qibla? It's pretty easy, right? Because you're just a little bit north of west.
No.
Right? It's a couple degrees, so you just look at, okay, the sun's going down there. I've seen people, like very intelligent people, God bless them, I'm not judging them, but it's a proof of our disconnection, Because people in the past who were not educated, who were ummi, they knew exactly where the Qibla was based. Duh, like that's west. We're praying, a few degrees north of it. It's not even a conversation. We're not even thinking about it. But for now, people, I didn't in my app, I can't get a signal, I don't know what direction to pray. It's like, the sun's right there. You're about, 10 degrees north of west. Just go this way, bismillah. So, these are just signs for us, But the time of nighttime is to sleep. It says not to open up devices. I mean, even now, it's like, subhanAllah, they'd say, even this guy, his name is Huberman. What's his name?
Andrew Huberman.
Andrew Huberman. Who said that? Is that you? One of the greatest, biggest neuroscientists in the whole world. He works at Stanford, has his own lab, research. Anyways, he's million plus subscribing on YouTube and stuff like that, big channel. He said one of the best things you can do for stress and for modulating your nervous system is to be outside at sunrise and sunset. To be outside and to expose your eyes to the sky and the lights and to feel the settling of the cooling of the air, the settling of the sound, you know, like after rush hour traffic and things are quieter. The birds are flapping and they're going home, and the reds and the purples and the blues, and just be outside and see it go from blue to red to purple to black.
Even the birds know when to go in.
Even the birds know.
But we don't.
Absolutely. But then we go inside. But then you guys, you observe that, and now what do? We come inside, and what do we do? First thing?
Switch on the overhead light.
Switch on the light, which is a total aberration of the fitrah.
Disaster.
It's a disaster. Because it's supposed to be dark. And you're supposed to be, again, in a pre-technological world. You have candles, you have lamps, very basic
You could have
lighting.
floor light, but not the overhead light.
Yeah, and I tell people actually now, don't put these on at nighttime. If you can, just put some lamps. You know, they have those Himalayan salt lamps. Or just, you know, just normal lamps with yellow bulbs. So if you go to what's it called? Bunnings, here, yeah, and you get lamps, you get bulbs there. Get the 2000, but you can find the lower Kelvin rating bulbs
That's
still.
correct, yes.
So get like the 2000 to 2500 Kelvin light bulbs. They're more of an orangish, yellowish.
The wrong one.
The warm ones, as opposed to the daylight one, 8000 Kelvin daylight white lights, which are, you know, when you come in, it hurts. Like, and you maybe don't feel it now because you're used to it. But if you were to switch, like spend all of Ramadan in proper lighting, and keep it dim, and notice what happens to you. Notice even how, subhanAllah, like maybe you struggle to sleep early. Just turn off the lights, use lamps, cool the house a little bit more than you're used to, even if it means you have to put on an extra layer. Just cool the house a little bit, drink herbal tea, and don't open up screens. Just as an experiment, just see what it's like for you. I bet you'll sleep by like 9 o'clock.
Yes, yes.
9:30.
It will be harder to attend Isha. It will become so hard.
Now, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it should be like in the summer. Like in the summer, it should be a struggle to make it till Isha.
That's why it's one of the hardest prayers.
And that's why, yeah, I agree. I remember I had a teacher of mine asked me, he's like, I'm struggling to make it to Isha because he gets up early. He gets up for tahajjud and he's teaching all morning and all afternoon. And he's like, I can't make it to Isha. Like I'm sleeping and I'm waking up at like 2 in the morning to pray it, and I don't want to do that. What should I do? I said, just add a nap. I told him, add a half an hour qayluda, like around 1, 2 o'clock. And I saw him next time, he's like, that worked. That helped.
Just a sleep, for example, many times we do get up in the night, either health reason, either, you know,
Yes.
want to get up or anything. So that would be okay as well. Also, there are breaks in between. So would have the same impact as well, rather than continuously.
Yeah, there's articles now talking about the original sleep rhythm to being a polyphasic or biphasic. So there's 2 phases of sleep at nighttime, not including the qayluda, the siesta. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used to sleep after Isha, and most people in the pre-modern world slept after Isha. So let's say it's like, it could be as early as like, if it's in the winter time, maybe 7 o'clock. If you look at your clock, it's pitch black. It's been pitch black for 45 minutes. We prayed Isha. We did Surah Al-Mulk. We're ready to go. The kids are sleeping. There's nothing to do. It's dark. And you're feeling drowsy. You gotta go to sleep, 7 o'clock. Let's say you sleep until 6 hours, you know. You find yourself at 1 o'clock, you know, getting up. Maybe you have to empty your bladder, but also you're up. You know, maybe you're going to do a little bit of work, maybe do some Quran, you do some review of ilm, whatever you want to do. In the article that I read, it was a non-Muslim author. He talked about in traditional civilizations that people would sleep early, get up and have biphasic sleep. They would actually meet with their friends. People would actually meet and, you know, have tea and play cards and talk, and then they go back home and sleep again until sunrise. So even non-Muslim civilizations had biphasics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually not, people think, oh, I'm not sleeping through the night, it's actually a bad thing. It actually might be a good thing. It might be a good thing. Obviously, to speak with someone about that would be appropriate, but biphasic sleep is the sunnah and is the fitrah. And having a qailula somewhere in the afternoon, like we do back home.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, me too. Even now, alhamdulillah, like sometimes I have
20 minutes.
20 minutes in my chair. I pop off my thing, I lean back, I put my alarm on my phone. 20 minutes, I feel like I'm fully revived.
I sleep in my office even.
Me too.
During lunch break.
Yes.
15 minutes.
Absolutely. And there's something, subhanAllah, I think about it this way. This is just my thinking about things. Allahu alam. But, when we sleep, the ruh disconnects from the body. Right? There's a type of, the angel of death comes. And it's a type of little death that happens, right? The actual ruh disconnects from the body. And this is a nourishment for the ruh. The ruh has to go back to its home, which is the realm of spirits, alam al-arwah, to actually refill its tank. Because there's nothing of the dunya here, of materiality, that nourishes the ruh. It's only the presence of Allah Ta'ala. So that's one of the meanings of sleep, the needs of sleep. The body gets its rest, but also the ruh gets its nourishment. And if it's decreed for us to live another day, the angel of death will blow the ruh back into the body, and the ruh saturates into the body, like a sponge taking in water. Kind of like that. That's kind of the imagery that I have of
That happens every day?
Every day.
وهو الذي يتوفاكم بالليل.
No, exactly.
يعلم ما يحدث بالنهار. It's actually in the Quran.
It's in the Quran. And so there's a type of saturation. This is the language I like to use, of saturation, and the image is like a sponge holding water and filling up with ruh. And then at the end of the day, when you're tired, let's say midday, you've exhausted yourself, and maybe you didn't sleep really well or whatever, there's a part of you, you feel tired because the energy body, the ruh itself, is probably already disconnected a little bit. It wants to go back. And how do we usually remedy that as modern people, especially in Australia, because you have really good coffee. Yeah, you just take coffee and you force the ruh to get back inside there, give me more energy, right? And it's an adenosine antagonist. So there's these certain compounds that we make when we're tired and stressed out, called adenosine, and they trigger the body to okay, I'm going to take a nap to rest or something like that. So what caffeine does is actually antagonize, meaning it blocks the the noticing of adenosine building up in the body as a chemical. This is a chemical kind of ishara, it's not the whole meaning. But basically it blunts you from noticing how tired you are, basically. That's what caffeine does. That's what caffeine does. It blocks you from noticing how tired you are. So the nap becomes a really amazing thing. If you're already going away, close your eyes for 20 minutes, let it go. And when it comes back, it always comes back fully.
Sure, it will come back.
It comes back out of no promises, sorry. I can't promise you and me will get home after this meal.
If it's a time, then it's a time.
If it's time, it's time.
I shouldn't be scared for that.
Yeah,
That's one thing. But sorry, there are many curiosities coming up. I'm gonna keep asking a few questions if you don't mind. Mashallah, that was really wonderful. You flip the things. When the day start, I think this will stick in our mind. Now we eat. We do eat food, and lunch, breakfast, dinners, and all in between. Eat a lot of gulab jamuns, all of the sweets.
Yes.
Could you please? Yeah, no, I saw that. I was 2 meters away from them. So, could you please advise, of course, brother, you as well, and both, from our lay people like us in our sort of circumstances, a bit of diet point of view, how that can help us, maybe bringing some unique change.
Yes.
That, which we could either it's my wife she is like a hikmah for me. She will tell me do that. For example, black seed. To take the oil from that as well. And again, it's a very strange thing she asked me to eat was the kernels of the apricot. I'm not sure, but when I read on it, it was written forbidden to eat in Australia.
It has cyanide in it.
That's right, and immediately put it aside. So, can you please talk about the diet and about the eating patterns that could help our systems to improve, please?
So just to add to that question, it's like more about the cravings, so we can't stop ourselves. So if something is at the front,
That too, yeah.
even we are not hungry, we just want to eat something.
Yeah.
But are you finished with the sleep?
We can come back to sleep, but we can shift gears a little bit. There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about. See how much it's so rich,
You stay here then.
It's like, God bless you. God bless you. So again, I'm going to just name this, that it's important for us to be able to individualize our diets, right? All of us we have certain specific needs. I do certain types of testing as well, personally. So I do more of the intuitive, old type of individualizing of diet, what we call the hikmah. But then we also do some testing as well. So I do that, and I kind of bring it together. The hikmah is the term that the Prophet ﷺ actually used for diet. And one of the Sahaba who was a Hakim, his name is Sayyidina al-Harith ibn Kanada, who is known to have said, and I'm sure he got it from the Prophet ﷺ, but he was also a physician that was trained in Gundeshapur, which was like the Harvard medical, John Hopkins medicine program of the whole world in Persia. Or I think it was in Iraq actually. Gundeshapur. But he's known to have said, "Al-mi'datu baytu ad-da' wal-himyatu ra'su ad-dawa." Says the stomach is the house of illness. It's where illness lives.
Yes.
And the hikmah is the best of all treatments. So what's the hikmah? The hikmah is the individualized, restrictive diet. Individualized to you and somehow eliminative. We're removing something that's offensive. Right? That's the hikmah. And the Hakims would never even give a dawa, which is a prescription, whether it be homeopathic, herbal, pharmaceutical, anything you administer, they wouldn't give the dawa until they established the hikmah. The hikmah and the dawa are the two parts of the approach of the Hakim. The lifestyle, individualized lifestyle, usually, and the diet being at the center of that, and then the prescription. So in terms of diet, we have a lot of problematic aspects. We have timing, we have quantity, we have quality. The food nowadays oftentimes is not even real food. Much of our food is compromised. This is something that we can get really upset about. I get upset about it often. Organic food isn't a special type of food. Organic isn't like food from Jannah or a special food with special sparkles on it or something. It's just normal food. Organic is the norm.
Yes.
It's the norm. And then now the conventional food that they made available to everyone is the GMO food, the genetically modified food, and the pesticide-laden food, right? Because the soil is depleted. And when the soil is depleted and weakened, it harbors different types of germs, different types of bacteria, parasites, different types of microbes that affect the actual crop. And so instead of actually addressing the weakened soil, what do? We spray pesticides.
We have an agriculturist, right?
There was someone who was
Yeah,
an
he
agriculturist.
probably,
Was it you?
No, he's gone. He was sitting over there.
Oh, did I upset him? I wasn't
No, he was practicing for the role too.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting comparison you just made, and I made the connection. That what we are doing to the land, we are doing to the human body.
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking.
It's
Exactly.
just like subhanAllah.
Well, you know what? This is actually, I met someone who's a permaculturist. The permaculturists are people that they do like regenerative farming. So like holistic farming, basically. They're beautiful. They don't use any chemicals. They want to strengthen the soil. Yeah?
You mean
And so-
Jeff Lawton? You talking about
Jeff Lawton and his people.
Yeah, so Jeff Lawton does he's called Zaytuna Farm. I think
Yes.
it's New South Wales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does amazing work. Yeah.
Amazing work.
I've done an episode.
Very
with
good
him.
brother.
You did it with him?
Yeah, because
Wow.
I used to be affiliated with Muslim Aid Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So that at the time was Sheikh Hassan El Satuhi, and Sheikh Hassan and Jeff Lawton are very good close friends.
Nice.
So Sheikh Hassan, being the CEO of Muslim Aid Australia, would work closely with the Zaytuna Farm and permaculture.
Nice.
They'd go to like overseas, and like what you're talking about regenerative farming, they literally did that in other places around the
Yes.
world where they're struggling to grow food and stuff like that. So they did a lot of projects. I was also part of the marketing team that went to Queensland to help with the Stanthorpe drought appeal, all that kind of stuff. So they did a lot of
He became
stuff.
Muslim, right?
yeah. He can
He
learn,
did. He
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. So-
I can link it later, inshallah, in the
Yeah, no,
WhatsApp
link it,
chat.
link it,
Like,
link it.
we
It's
did a
very
good
good.
conversation. He talking, sorry, just sad. Like, he was talking about like yogurt. Like back in that time of Prophet Sallallahu, the Arabs had a yogurt. Like they'll take it from the milk, from the cow, and then leave it out in the sun, and they had it as yogurt. Whereas different to obviously how we do it. So it kind of makes it like shift the paradigm a little bit. It's
Mm.
how we
His
see
name is
food.
Jeff Lawton.
Jeff Lawton. Yeah, he has a lot of. He's very popular on YouTube and stuff.
He's
so
like the
has a
king
lot
of
channel.
permaculture. I mean, he is
Yeah, in the
considered
world,
one of the
whole world.
the kings.
So a lot of people around the world like reach out to him, asking all these like questions so that they
He's
can
amazing.
do their own farming and stuff. Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah, sorry.
So I met with one of his students basically in the States. His name is Ramesh Kent, and he's a good friend of mine. I told him basically, you do with the earth what I do with people. He said, absolutely.
SubhanAllah.
He's brilliant. He was telling me actually, just to give you an idea of like how different they are than other types of farmers. He was approached by the Saudi government because in the north of Saudi, they were having a problem with locusts, these bugs that eat the crops. So he went there and he did some investigations of what was going on, and he found that I forgot the crop that they were growing, but basically the soil was so depleted and so toxic, basically, that the crops that were growing from it were all weak. And when that specific crop was weak, it went from a protein-rich constitution to a carbohydrate-rich constitution. Now, what do locusts like? Carbohydrates. They were attracted to the weakened, carb-rich crop. So he found that out, and the guy, I guess, who invited him said, so what, should we just spray them? He's like, no, God, you're not understanding. We have to strengthen the soil. So he went on like a 6-month, campaign to strengthen the soil. Eventually, he was able to do that, and the locusts went away naturally. They never came back. They didn't spray anything on the crops. They just strengthened the soil in the way that they know how to do that properly. The constitution of the crop went to a protein-rich constitution, and the problem went away.
That's amazing. So just to add, like
Isn't that amazing?
that sort of like it touching back when we were talking about the human body, like there was someone might have suggested I'll just spray something to get rid of the locust because there was this issue, and it's only touching on the surface issue, but not really addressing the underlying issue.
Exactly.
So obviously that person took the time to address that and able to get the problem of the locusts away. So it's not just about spraying. It's similar to like the human body.
It's not about
medicine,
killing the
like,
bug.
just take this pill, take that, and
It's not about the bacteria. It's not about the virus. It's not about that. That's what that means. There's two different philosophies, right, in terms of infections. You have germ theory, which is that these pesticides, these locusts, these bacteria, this virus is causing disease. And then you have terrain theory, which is that there's a weakened terrain, there's a weakened earth, weakened landscape that makes the land hospitable to locusts and pathogens and bacteria and stuff like that. And I believe in the latter. I'm more of a terrain theorist. I don't believe in germ theory, germs having causative effects.
We have germs all over in our
Absolutely.
the gut flora and all that. It's just only when it's opportunistic.
That's
when
right.
It's got the opportunity. Land, just want to add something to it.
Please.
In the older days, they used to do only 2 crops a year. And the rest of the time was to replenish the earth so it will become strong again.
Yes.
Now we are doing 3 to 4 crops a year,
Yes.
and it's not giving Earth enough time to rest as well.
That's right.
And that is very true to the human nature, as we were talking about the sleep. That
Ajib.
if we are working and we are constantly going to the same thing, hence the constitution gets weaker.
So that's my question. That you said that soil was resting. How we make our body to rest and recover?
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Right? I think that's even deeper than diet, honestly. Because diet is like, okay, like, look.
You can ask Brother Tariq. He was resting there.
That's important, really.
I picked on it too, but I just let it go.
So I want to hear about that one.
I mean, there's so many ways that we can cultivate leisure. You know, I mean, we all do have different hobbies. For example, like I encourage everyone to have hobbies, things that they're interested in, things that you don't come to it for capitalistic needs or an imperative. Something you do just out of love. Like for example, something artistic. Something artistic is something that you can just do it for the love of the thing, as opposed to the love of creating something, as opposed to needing for it to, be part of a mission or to make money or whatever, pay the bills. One thing also I encourage people to do is to be in nature. The Japanese have this idea of shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, which is just you being conscious in nature. It's not doing anything specific. You're not having a mantra. You're not doing a specific dhikr. You can do that too, but it's just you being conscious. Don't have your iPods, the headphones in, listening to something. Take everything away and just be there. My teacher was mentioned, Hakim Marchalata. He studied in Ajmer, Pakistan, and he said that when he went to his teacher, he said that my grandfather taught me hikmah, how to be a hakim, by studying the forest. Studying the forest, by studying the different types of plants and trees and different animals and birds and the bees and the bugs and how the night and day and the seasons interact. And this is a microcosm, it's a little world here, and if you can understand that, you can understand the human being. Yeah? But so, being in nature, conscious, and being able to notice the smell of the trees and and listen to the sound of the wind. And different trees make different sounds when the wind blows through them. And he had taught me that too. One day I was visiting him in New Mexico, and he has these big trees in his backyard. And he said, I was talking, he said, listen. Did you hear that? I said, no. The trees. He said, oh, the tree. Yeah, I heard the wind, okay. He's like, listen to the wind. Said, okay, listen. What'd you hear now? I said, wind. He's like, did you hear it change? I said, no. He said, the wind changed and that tree over there made more sound than this one. And I said, SubhanAllah, Sidi, you're the one. You tell me, But ever since then, I've noticed more. That was like 10 years ago. I've noticed more about these types of things. And
in the US, Japanese people had problem with the stomach cancer, even though their diet is not that much of it. Maybe it's different in the US than what they were doing in Japan. But there's a huge cultural difference.
Of course.
What they did in Japan and what they did in the US.
Absolutely.
So most of the brothers who are here from Pakistan, same thing. If you were in Pakistan at this age, you wouldn't be thinking 60s any age. Because I took my wife from here to Pakistan, and she saw this old man with a big kind of collection running after a bus. And she was like, wow, this person should be in a wheelchair. And he was trying to catch the bus. So
no, if he was in a wheelchair, he'd lose that very quickly.
Exactly.
The fact that he's not should be.
Yeah, and she was very amazed by it because.
Ajib, it's amazing. It was an interesting documentary on Netflix. It's called The Blue Zones.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the blue zones?
Yep.
Anyone? The blue zones? The blue zones are areas in the world where there's more centenarians, people that live over 100 in other places. So they went around to these different blue zones and studied what they were doing there in terms of diet, exercise, sleep. They found that basically that they all did similar things.
Human relation was very important.
Social relationships, spiritual relationships.
My other question is now, we have done the damage. How to reverse it?
Yeah. Look, it's about strengthening the terrain, strengthening the ground, you know. So if you were, for example, and I don't want to expose you, but everyone can answer the question, you know, like, what time do you sleep?
10 o'clock,
1 a.m.
definitely
9:30,
10:15,
10:15, 1.
as soon as you
What time?
Midnight.
Midnight, 11.
Depends on 1 year old.
Yeah, I understand. I have 3 under 6, so I get it.
2 o'clock last night.
I sleep at 10, but even after 8 hours sleep, I still don't feel okay, so I just want to sleep
Yes.
more. I don't know what it is.
If we were to focus on sleep and optimizing sleep and do sleep hygiene, maybe again being outside late asr, coming in for maghrib, dimming the lights, doing all the stuff we talked about, not eating after a certain time. So even like not eating dinner after 7, 6. I mean 7:30 maybe, not in the summer, because Aisha's like at 10 anyways. Give yourself 2-3 hours before bed to really empty the stomach properly. Yeah. Use herbal teas. Just be more intentional about this is the beginning of my day. I'm starting my day with rest. I'm starting my day with connection to Allah Ta'ala. Being with my family. I'm filling my cup. I'm filling my cup. And then midday, meaning Fajr. Yes. Midday, meaning Fajr, you go out and you seek your provision and you serve the community and do what you do. That it's an interesting way on your perspective. But I encourage everyone to walk every single day. And walking is separate from exercising. Walk is just its own thing. Walking is its own thing. And the people that I find in America that really maintain that fitri practice are the South Asians. The only people I see walking on the streets in Chicago, in the suburbs. In the cities, it's different, obviously, but in the suburbs are people from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh.
But in Australia,
It's
Aussies do that.
Sorry?
In Australia, Aussies do that thing. But
Yeah,
A lot of Asians do it. A lot.
Asians do it too. Asians, I was so impressed. I was staying in a Vietnamese area in Sydney last week, and I woke up. I was at Fajr. I was staying out, and I looked out, and like everybody was like in their front driveway,
Like Tai Chi?
doing qigong, tai chi, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh god. And it's so not. They're in their pajamas, barefoot, just nonchalant. I mean, just couldn't be fussed, you know. Just it's so beautiful, so beautiful. So having dinner early, having a little bit less than usual, incorporating maybe more fermented foods. This is one of the things that you find in different areas of the world, in the blue zones, and even just in traditional cuisine anywhere in the world, whether you were coastal, whether you were a farmer, whether you were in the mountains, whether you were, even the Inuit, the Eskimos in the Arctic Circle, they would ferment caviar, fish eggs. They had this big barrel of caviar, which is now very expensive, right? They would collect them and ferment them, which makes them more potent over time. And then they'd save it for 4 classes of people. The youth, the elderly, pregnant women to strengthen the baby, and people who were sick. 4 people that the Eskimos would give this superfood. Now, we talk about superfood, we say about this berry or this type of kale, lettuce, or fermented foods. That's a superfood. Ginger is a superfood. The original honey is a superfood. Raw milk is a superfood.
I mean, in Pakistan we had the similar. They used to make panda. So they used to make something like that. This is kind of like the things that you give to the people, the older people. They used to have this.
Was it fermented?
Most of the time.
Sorry, what was it? What was it?
Lot of the herbs and stuff. So,
Panjiri stuff.
Panjiri and all the other
For the
stuff.
pregnant moments.
Pinya and yeah, that's all. That is medicine.
So Panjiri is fermented.
That's why
Panjiri is not fermented.
mother
No,
used to
Panjiri.
make.
You have the achar.
Achar is fermented, yes.
Achar and
Achar is fermented.
well, that's where you put it and leave it, and that's why you the mango achar and all that. That's what
No,
what you
it's,
do.
no, it's pickled. It's not fermented.
It's similar.
Very
it's
similar.
Yeah.
Pickled. It's a pickled. Is it a vegetable?
It's vegetable.
Yeah, it's a fermentation. I mean, there's early fermentation. If we were to keep it going, it would become stronger. Yeah. And even the Prophet ﷺ used to put dates in water overnight and lightly ferment it.
So putting
It's
date in
called
water,
nabidh.
putting date in water would ferment it.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime you put
Without
water
any-
and
any
sugar,
salt.
no, you don't have to put it. You don't have to put anything. Just sugar and water together creates alcohol.
Sorry, explain.
Creates alcohol. Creates a fermentation, like a natural fermentation. I mean, overnight you're not getting get drunk or anything. Sometimes some of the Sahaba would make it very strong.
And the thing is
And-
that like when you eat less than what you eat usually. But the question was before like how to stop yourself.
How to stop yourself? I mean, this can need extra support, because some of our, we all have desires. Right? We have the nafs, we have shahwa, we have these shahwat, desires, and our main desires are two: food and sex. These are the two things, and this is what most men's issues come from these two things: not being able to discipline themselves to maintain control over these two shahwat, and you don't want to suppress it, right? We're not ruhban, we're not monks, we don't want to be depriving ourselves from these things. These are the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. But being able to put it in its proper place can be a challenge. And
So what are the two?
a lot of times, psychological issues can be underneath all of that.
What are the two?
Food and sex.
Food and sex, yeah, food and sex. These are two the quwwat. So you have, what they call it in English, the irascible soul and the concupiscible soul. The irascible soul is like your, your anger faculty, and then the concupiscible soul are the shahawat, and from there you have food and sex, your appetites. You have anger and you have appetites.
Carbohydrates. They consider, sort of basics of many problems. We eat, South Asian love roti, that's our life really. Any replacement to that one? First of all, are they real? Carbohydrates is evil.
No, it's not evil.
Second is, what should be the replacement for that one?
Yeah. I
If
mean,
there is any sort of
I wouldn't
literature on that.
say replacement. I would just say, is there ways to make it healthier?
Yeah.
Like the frying. I know the frying of a lot of our cuisine can be like the bad oil, vegetable oils, the canola oils, these polyunsaturated oils that are usually, when they're heated, especially, they become trans fats. Have you heard this idea of trans fats? Yeah. So you have certain types of fats that are polyunsaturated. They're fine when they're not heated. When they're heated, the bonds will flip, and they actually become very inflammatory.
And they would never be detected out of the body.
They'll never be what? Sorry.
They may not be detected out of the body.
Yeah.
Never.
Is it the carbohydrates though, or is it the wheat?
Wheat,
they
roti,
have
So it's
modified.
exactly. So if there's a way of getting organic wheat, or what they call now ancient wheat, like if you can get Khurasani wheat,
Khorasan,
who's
yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
Khurasani.
you can get it. Yeah.
Is it?
You can.
So Terra Madre, you can get the Khorasan flour. You can get the wheat.
Is that a franchise? There's one on
and
Thornbury.
Thornbury.
Oh, that's
it's the
not-
same guy. Ryan, his name.
Yeah,
is,
yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
So is there only one, or is there a franchise?
No, both of them are owned by the same.
Two of them. Okay, yeah, yeah. That's the one I've been to. It's a nice.
Yeah.
It's like a Khurasaniyata, is it?
Khurasani. It says Khurasan flour. Khurasani.
It can also be called einkorn. Einkorn
Ein-
flour is also
Sorry.
einkorn. 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 That's ancient corn. Its DNA goes back thousands of years.
That's not
So
modified.
one more
It's not modified.
okay, so I think what brothers wanted also like about craving. If you are even if you are not feeling like you mentioned a bit like about discipline, but like just a bit more than that. I mean, like discipline is a concept, like how to in practice.
Yeah.
How are the ways? Like I mean, you can
Just
control.
It's a good question, yeah.
Sustain or we are supposed to control.
One thing I tell people you can try to do is a lot of people are not connected to their body enough to distinguish between thirst and hunger.
Yes.
So actually, when you feel that first pang of hunger, go drink a tall glass water. If you can put some warm water, not too cold, but like room temperature water, and just drink that. Maybe drink 2. And then just wait 10 minutes. Go for a walk. Just wait. If you're so hungry, tell your nafs, if you're so hungry, I'll feed you. But just give it a break. Like because the worst thing with the shahwat is the impulse.
Yes.
The fast reaction.
Yes.
It's unconscious.
Instant. Yes.
It's instant. It's automatic. You have automatic behaviors. And much of our it's not discipline in the sense of I'm being a man, I'm being strong. It's about being intentional. It's being conscious.
And there's disappointment after that. After
Yeah, of course. We all know that. You know,
I shouldn't have eaten that
we
much or
all
whatever.
have that stuff.
It's like buying on Temu.
Yeah.
So funny.
Oh God, that's so true.
Mazen, when we are fasting, we are already practicing that. It's just like when you're not fasting, then you tend to.
Yeah.
If you feel like eating, then you basically.
But I mean, that
But
comes
even-
back to
But even after
intentional.
fasting too, it's like people after fasting, you know, you'll make up the whole
Yeah,
meal
whole-
plus the whole day plus
All it,
after you break your fast.
Sweets
So
and stuff.
yeah.
And
Some
so-
people gain weight during Ramadan. That's and that's something maybe even if we're used to doing stuff like that, maybe this year, inshallah ta'ala, as we approach now, we're almost mid Sha'ban. Allahumma ballaghna Ramadan. You know, it's like making an intention this year that I'm doing something different. Because we eat way too much. Like we eat way more than we need oftentimes. And like Ramadan typically, like we're not even, you know, in the past they would have to go like get their food. They had to go slaughter, they have to go to the grocery, they have to carry. Even riding a horse is physically arduous. Even for riding an animal, you know, driving is a lot easier than riding an animal. So the fact that we don't even spend energy to get our food as much, you know.
Even local gym in Sunbury, so they were promoting on the screens that the Muslims fasting days are coming, and they were promoting that at least fast 1 day in a week for those people as well,
Wow,
and at least fast for 3 to 4 hours before they go to bed.
nice, exactly. Good.
Yeah, just to connect to hunger, because you mentioned about the impulse you have and what you can do to sort of mitigate that, but just like as you're talking about that, reminded me that like sometimes reason why people eat a lot or that lack of discipline isn't necessarily just from the impulse, but also like emotional response to, for example, I was like, I think I was watching a video of someone going through like the fact that, I don't know, their mother passed away and their mother, when they were young, would cook them such good food because they went to a school that was so strict. For them, it was like a safe space to be like themselves and feel loved. And so when like getting older, like obviously that deep child trauma in some sense, like that association runs deep into, I guess, the eating habits. So I think it's that deeper layer as well to take into consideration.
It's a deeper layer, for sure.
To consider,
It's
yeah.
a deeper layer, yeah.
And the other, sorry, with food, because I know temperamentally, like when I was studying some of the medicinal sort of, I guess the diets for different temperaments, like the melancholic might find beef a bit of a struggle, or it's not recommended for the melancholic to have beef too much. That's what one of the books I read. So each temperament has different diets that can optimize them, rather than, I guess people like talk about keto, and like you mentioned earlier, there's all those diets, and it's not always a one size fits all, right? You
No.
have to sort of know yourself, your body,
Yes.
like, you know, the sanguineness or the fire temperament or the air temperament, like how that body reacts. Like I know dealing with my friends, like they need like a heavier breakfast as opposed to someone like myself, because they need energy. Like the body's always naturally functioning fast. The body has to keep up and needs some sort of carbs or food.
Yes.
Whereas opposed to a slower reacting body doesn't necessarily need so many carbs, but they can slowly have the right, like, I don't know, tea or whatever, or ginger as well. I recommend, like, in flags of need ginger to get the body going in the morning slowly in a progressive way.
Yeah.
Or else the digestion won't start up and kickstart. So and that's from my understanding. So it's what I ask.
Assalamu alaikum. Astaghfirullah.
See you soon.
Thank you for coming. God bless you. Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum.
But if you, yeah, I was just asking that to just
So thank you.
ask your thoughts on, I guess, diet and different responses, and just kind of understanding how someone can know what diet can optimize them, or even like the idea of intermittent fasting is really popular. That sort of works.
MashaAllah, very good.
Dr. Mazen, you talked
Yes.
about nature, strengthening soil,
Yes, yeah.
organic food. I'm thinking to offer everyone 1 acre land and come over and grow the veggie.
There's a farm.
Feel the
That's amazing.
listen the winds, birds, this and that, and come back to nature.
That would be a great hikmah. That'd be a great service.
It has gun shooting as well. So
Oh, do you?
gun shooting.
Oh, that's.
Owns a
We're
gun
Americans.
shooting.
We love our guns.
We do gun shooting on some. Yeah.
That's the problem. In theory, it all looks great.
It looks great.
Is doing your
Go
gardening
and
becoming
Practice is the
difficult?
problem.
That's the problem. Yeah. And the hunger which you were talking about, I kind of little bit have problem with that. I found that when I'm hungry, I persist, not when I eat. After a few hours, literally my hunger goes away then. Next 10 hours, I can go without food. And I would not feel hungry. God knows what the body's reaction is that. There's hunger, I want to eat something. I will resist. Maybe a couple of hours that phases, then after that, somehow body adapts to it. And that's long period then. Then I can decide, should I eat now or should I not decide? Yes, then weakness may sometime will come in. That might be the indicator probably I should eat. But that's a kind of pattern I have not eaten, now that would be surprised with 36 hours. 36 hours I did not eat solid food. And alhamdulillah still function. I drink water, but 36 hours I did not eat.
I think Jason Fung, is pretty popular. He really recommends like intermittent fasting. Like, what are your thoughts? Like,
I think intermittent fasting is great. I think most people, and I want to come back to this point about hunger and appetite. But intermittent fasting is very good. I think that most people in the past, again, pre-modern, pre-cars and grocery stores, you weren't always eating meals steady. It wasn't a steady meal. It wasn't, even the Sahaba oftentimes, they wouldn't know when their next meal was coming. That's when the Prophet ﷺ said, how will you be when you have 2 meals a day? And they said, oh, Ya Rasulullah, say it ain't so. 2 meals a day? It's like 2 meals a day. It's like subhanallah. And like more than 2 foods at the same time, they eat like bread and vinegar. It was like one time even someone commented like, bro, you're eating bread and vinegar together. Like, whoa. It's like we have a totally, like, as modern people, like we have a totally different experience of food than pre-modern people. Very different. They would see our cuisine and be like, what? I don't even know how to look at. I don't even know how to
It's a
make sense of this.
hadith, right? Of Rasulullah that eat when you're hungry. One third.
Yes. Well, actually, that's the second part of the hadith.
Yeah, the first. Yeah.
The first part of the hadith is, it's sufficient for the son of Adam, luqaymat. Just a few bites. Why? To keep his back straight. And then comes the rukhsa. If you must, eat 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, and leave 1/3 for air. That's the rukhsa. That's the dispensation. The asl of like what's satisfactory for us is actually just nuqaymat, just a few bites. Now, okay, again, we're modern people. We have different constitutions now, different expectations. We have different culture. We have different access. We're much more wealthy than people in the past. For them, people in the past wouldn't have meat every day. Now people get cranky if there's no meat for dinner. It's a different world. It's a different world. Yeah, it's a different world. It's just a different world we're in. Alhamdulillah. So, but we can make sense of it still, and I think fasting is a good practice to have. Just intentionally, just like, and this helps with the cravings. Like if you I am a intermittent fasting. I am putting it on my schedule, on my planner. Making intention, maybe even taking an oath. You have to be very serious if you're going to do something like that. But I know people like that. People their nafs was so strong, they couldn't break it. They said, Wallahi, Allah, I take an oath by you that I will not eat after 8 p.m. for the next, and then you should define it. Don't say forever. So for the next 40 days, yeah? And then if you break that, now you have to pay kafara, you have to fast, you have to free slaves. It's the whole thing now. Right? But it just puts and even people that have addictions with, watching stuff online, stuff like that. It's that's one thing that they end up, I shared that with them, and then they build up the strength, and I said, I'm going to do I'm going to do an oath to Allah Ta'ala. Or another way, and this is for my teachers, because we all love money, he says, you love money. Every time you do something, you eat a bite or you look at something, $500. Make it hurt. Don't say $10. Now you have a budget for it, Make it hurt. You know what I'm saying? $500, $1,000 every time you do it, and oath. So that changes your behavior immediately. Yeah. Imagine you get all your savings.
Genuine, sincere intention so powerful, because I feel like Allah will make it easier for you, right? If you really make it intention.
Many times I think that our fasting is daytime. It's much easier to fast in the night time. You just eat dinner, sleep, next day by midday, can have a breakfast.
Nice to meet you.
So what's the hikmah of a religion of having the fasting daytime? It would have been easier in the night time.
SubhanAllah. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. But there's something about the deen that's very interesting to me. That it's not rational. It's not irrational. It's supra-rational.
I'm sure there's
So one of the examples of the deen being supra-rational is the masah of the khuf. Imam Ali, right? Imam Ali said, Karamallahu wajhahu, if the deen was rational, we'd wipe on the bottom of the khuf. That's where we're getting dirty and dusty and sandy and stuff. But we wipe on top, right? We do that. If it was rational, we'd clean the bottom. He says, this is from Allah. It doesn't matter what you think. Just samana wa ta'ana. We hear and we obey. Your khuf is not valid if you wipe on the bottom. So there's but I'm with you. Allahu alam, I don't know, but the sunnah, it's to fast some days and to not fast some days.
24 hours fasting. Simply just have the dinner, drink water. You get up at the fajr, maybe have a little glass of maybe water or something.
Yeah.
So 24 hours just without eating and solid food.
Yeah. So dry fast. It's called a dry fast. So you can have water, you can have juice, or tea, maybe not juice. Water and tea, but no solids. Dry fast. So it's a good practice.
You could have anything which does not spike insulin.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing caloric is the way I put it. Nothing with calories. So tea, coffee, water.
No, and even I was thinking Ramadan as well. In Ramadan, we just simply
herbal tea.
Eat dinner, for example. Mashallah, we all eat iftar, big iftar. Don't eat suhoor, just maybe a little sip of water, just for sunnah, and that's it. Just leave it like that.
Honestly, I would prefer you have a bigger suhoor and enlighten the iftar.
Yes.
Do it that way.
Makes
It's
sense.
the other way.
Do it that way.
So can
And-
you repeat again what did you say?
So instead of having a light suhoor
Mm-hmm.
and having a big iftar, flip it. Have a bigger suhoor.
And then go to
Pray
the
Fajr and then nap a little bit if you
Fajr
can.
But
and
how
then-
this is for normal people? For example, diabetic.
Yeah, so there's no, it can't be. So there's other things. You have to keep your blood sugar in check and stuff like that. But just as a general teaching, I would say keep iftar light. Because then, how are you gonna do not tahajjud, tarawih?
Tarawih.
You know, it's tough to do the full 20. You know,
What's the like for people that are diabetic, the most effective way to sort of control that from naturopath perspective? Like,
well, I established the himya, so I remove any food intolerances, any things that affect the metabolism of food. Because that's individual, right? Everyone has a food intolerance or food combinations that they're intolerant to. So, foods that they can't digest, basically. So that's the first thing I do, and I help optimize digestion and absorption. And then there's certain herbs that you can give, there's certain homeopathics that you can give, there's certain timings, there's certain types of foods that you should have them avoid or not avoid. You have to work with people, you know. You have to work with people in their own diets, their own habits. Sometimes people are in their, they're older, they're not really interested in changing too much. They'd rather just take the drug. So, I don't know, it depends. If they're committed to like really changing things, there's a lot you can do. But just also noticing that a lot of glucose spikes come from cortisol spikes. Stress. Because stress triggers sugar. Because when think of it this way, sugar is really quick energy. It's fast and it burns quick and it gives you immediate energy. So if you're in a fight-flight situation, if a lion jumps out and you need to run, you don't want fat or protein as fuel. You want sugar. It's explosive. It's fast. So people that are constantly stressed out, they're constantly spiking their blood sugar. And it can become diabetes. It's not even diet-based. It could be just lifestyle-based. It could be stress-based. Right? So getting people to sleep right. It's all these things that we're talking about. I'm purposely kind of avoiding take this specific bitter melon. Yeah, okay, bitter melon helps with that.
Right?
But I mean, it
has to be tailored.
It's
to the
just
person,
it's getting the lifestyle right, getting aligned, getting the fitra alignment. I call it as much as possible. And then, of course, you work with a practitioner, and there's homeopathics, there's herbs, and you can, this copper is good for diabetes, bitter melon. There's all sorts of things that you can do, certain types of homeopathics. But if the foundations are not established, if the himya is not established, meaning the foundations, the actual lifestyle, the dawa is not going to work as much. That's why even like Allah Ta'ala gives the parable of fasting. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Allah the fasting has been prescribed to you, like it was prescribed to those before you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may have taqwa, right? And we fast, and so that's the himya. Is actually it's a dry himya, right? You're not consuming anything all day. What's the dawa of Ramadan? What's the prescription of Ramadan? If the fasting is the himya, Quran. And Quran now, when we're fasting, the body and the ruh are optimized for health and receiving. And now you read Quran and your heart explodes. You're able to travel with the Quran, really feel the Quran. The healing is the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And the fasting is what sets it up. Alhamdulillah.
What are your thoughts about genetic methylation test?
Genetic?
Methylation.
Methylation, yeah.
What are your thoughts about that test?
I know there's one big one, the MTHFR gene, the vitamin B12, and folate actually, it's folate. So people that don't methylate properly can have absorption with folate, which causes anemia, which causes all sorts of things. But there's different types. I'm not really as strong in these types of things. I just know that if people can be tested for It's called MTHFR gene. They have folate problems and should be given a special type of activated folate. That's really the extent of my methylation knowledge. I'm sure there's other things that you can check for as well. But yeah, I'm not. It's a good question. Maybe Sidi Hamad has something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really our perspective. It's not traditional, right? So this is more functional, integrative perspectives. It's not really, which people kind of assume it's what we talk about and what we do, and it's not. It's not traditional. It's not hikmah, you know. Like a lot of the naturopaths here in Australia, which maybe goes back to that question about the different training. Here, they're bachelor level training, you know. It's a bachelor level training here, and they're basically like holistic nutritionists. That's kind of what I've observed from them, is that they're holistic nutritionists, very evidence based. Like they really taught that. It's not. There's no like sanad. There's no tradition. You know, it's just Western integrative, holistic nutrition or integrative nutrition. The ND school that I went to has sanad. We have sanad back to the early naturopaths of Germany, who could trace back to Turkey and Egypt and the Muslim world. And they're more holistic in their perspective. They're more traditional. They practice like hakims. I was trained as a hakim, basically, like a Western hakim.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's not in the Unani method, but it was like I use homeopathy, and some people study TCM and they became hakims in that field.
It's the Western world's perspective of disease process. Sorry, they don't look at the disease. They look at the disease as a symptom. I think what we normally, or the so-called the alternative medicine, which is actually the medicine in its essence,
the original medicine. Yes.
That addresses the causes. So the principle, there has to be a principle, there has to be a philosophy, there has to be a way, like it's not just, like let's say for example, he's got this problem, this is the pill or this is the tablet. If I'm giving the same nutrition or a cream for it, if it is a plant-based as a naturopathic practitioner, like here in Australia, that doesn't make it a hikmah. Doesn't make sense. Like it's just that you have switched from pharmaceutical method to the plant-based medicine.
Exactly.
So it's not really hikmah. Hikmah is much more than that.
Exactly.
And that's actually addressing the whole being, rather than just this is good for that.
Yes.
And that's why when people ask, okay, I've got this issue, how do you resolve it? So then you go, there's a whole path.
There's a whole path, yeah. Like an intake, a new intake, for me takes 2 hours. I spend 2 hours with a new patient.
Yeah, that's
and sometimes take more.
Yeah, the same question was asked.
That's not the same question. In corn, they have the same thing like roti, and we can put in the milk, or they have the same corn like Asian food and corn.
That's the type of the wheat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's it's type of the wheat that you can grind to make flour, and then you can have the roti from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still, grinding it would be. It's not a good idea. Grinding anything is not a good idea.
You can get the stone grind.
Okay.
Well, no, you can grind it.
No, but if you grind it, the glycemic index increases.
If you're grinding it, if you're what's it called, processing it without the husk. If it's not whole grain, if you're grinding the whole grain, then you're fine. You want the whole grain. If you're processing just the actual kernel, then you're gonna have a high GI product. Yeah.
Add a bit of
But just back to what you were saying, it's a really beautiful point, and I agree with you totally in that. We actually have a therapeutic order taught by our teachers. It's like 7-tier system of treatment, 7-tier level. Each level it goes higher in force. Pharmaceutical prescribing is level 6. Surgery is 7. Level 5 is using natural substances to suppress a symptom, which is what you're saying. So 5, 6, 7 is all suppression. 1, 2, 3, 4 is about building health.
Yes, that's different.
So, building health, right? So he's talking about like, okay, pharmaceutical suppression. It has a place. Like even in this order, in this therapeutic model that I just offered, it's level 6 of 7. There's a place where, for example, like something's very acute and you're gonna die from it. Don't come to me. You go to the ER for God's sake and stabilize. So like if you have gangrene, you have an infection that's eating your limb. Don't come to me. I'm going to send you to the hospital immediately, and I'm going to have it cut off. And then we're going to stabilize. And then once you're home and rested, you come back to me, and we're going to address the underlying issues at that point to make sure it doesn't happen to this one. Right? Because if you don't change the underlying issues, it will happen to this one. So that's the idea. There's a place for everything. You're not here to denigrate anything. But as a model, there's a big difference between palliation of symptoms, suppression of symptoms, whether with pharmaceuticals or naturals, and addressing the underlying issues and creating health, right? So in our world, even in the States, not even just here, in the naturopathic world, in the States, we have 2 camps. We have what we call the vitalist camp, which is basically the hikmah camp, the traditionalist camp, and then you have what we call, a little bit cheeky, the green allopath. Yeah? The allopath is the Western physician, right? The allopathic medicine is Western physician. The allopath palliates symptoms. The green allopath does the same exact thing, but instead of using, for example, ibuprofen or paracetamol, he's using turmeric and high dose, 5 grams. Okay? They're both anti-inflammatories. That's why you're giving it. It's not because there's a hikmah with turmeric. Energetically, it's a hot, dry. You're in a cold, wet state. Turmeric is hot and dry to the 3rd degree, and we're balancing the energy of the body. No, it's not like that. It's just like we're using the same COX-2 pathway of the NSAID, of the anti-inflammatory, but there's less side effects and it's a natural source. But you're still thinking anti-inflammatory. That's the problem, right? It's level 5, and it's just palliation. Yeah, so I agree with you on that.
It's actually they did experimentation in 1924. The dislocation of the jaw. This was done at that time. I suppose there was no ethics, so they did these things where dislocation of the jaw will dilute your amylase, that you're gonna have that chewing aspect of it, and then your digestion will obviously go a little bit out of whack. Which also goes into that when we're eating, why we are supposed to eat slowly rather than eating faster. So the difference is that you go to somebody and they will correct your jaw and they'll say that's what it is. The other difference is when you say when you're eating, you need to have that slowly eaten, digested properly, and then your entire digestion is a little bit better.
Yes.
So there's a very big gap between the 2.
Yes.
Now the last question coming in my mind is if we need to go to here in Australia, naturopath, exactly the practices which you both have talked about, how we find it out where is somebody there, a qualified right person? Because we don't know, we simply go to the GP.
Yeah.
And GP would never tell us go to the naturopath.
That's true.
They'll give paracetamol straight away.
He will give next appointment.
And he will send us a network to specialists, an unending
And
story.
put you in a network so you keep all with touch base.
It actually depends on the GP. So I'm not trying to defend the GPs, but there are GPs who are actually, you will call them very holistic and actually very much they would be touching the realm of hikmah.
I agree.
The way they will look at it.
Okay.
They are.
Tell us.
Dr. Mazen does online, so that's another channel.
Yeah, that's another.
But even locally here, there's people.
Okay.
Sure.
So
Dr. Saab asked one question before.
let him finish.
So there are some. You just need to ask the right people. They will tell you where they are. Dr. Mazen does online, so that's even you can have that consultation.
Dr. Hamad's here as well.
Mine is very different. So I normally because I'm doing just a cancer strain anatomy, fix them up and send them So I'll show you. You will understand how it will actually complement what you do, and it's a little bit different on that aspect because it was just here we got too many regulations that you can't really get into the health aspect of it.
Yes.
So that's also because government is very tough on what you do here. It is not as the same as what they can do in US. It's very different. A lot of the things that you see here, a lot of the Chinese herbs have been taken out of the. You can't actually use them because they're deemed to be toxic, even though they are perfectly fine for the. I mean, they've been using it in a lot of the Asian countries. Yeah, even in America, they're using it because they are really good stuff. But
we
you
need
can't.
guns.
Sorry?
We need guns there.
Okay,
that's good.
Okay, where are those doctors?
So if you are looking for a GP, I actually did say that last time. One of the Russian doctor, he actually goes out of his Russian. He's Russian, but he goes out of his well, he goes out of his way, and he does a lot of the other stuff, which he is learning and then bringing it back to the GP.
That's good.
So his consultations are very long.
And where is it locally around?
It's actually in Barrymore Medical Center. But that's just one guy that I will say that.
What's his name?
Evgeny. I'm maybe pronouncing it.
Barrymore in Greenvale.
Yeah. Barrymore Medical Center.
Which is next to the child care, is it?
Next to the child care, yeah.
Oh,
so that's just one guy I know. I can tell you about him. There are other people, but they're in Queensland. It's the same thing with the dentist. Same thing with everything. There are people, but you have to travel because not everybody. I mean, if
Barrymore is just on the corner for us.
Yes.
Because the gap which you talked about, the 7 model, that surgeon has done their thing and whatever, then there's nothing treatment there to prevent reoccurring that one.
So
that gap is really frightening.
What Dr. Mazen said was that you have those 5, 6, 7 tier. At that problem, you actually have to go and see them because that is the stage where they apply. If you are before that, then you go and see the hikmah doctors or the people who are seeing it holistically, and you can adjunct that treatment with these people as well. I think that's what you were pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
The same question of doctor. Maybe we have the same problem in you and Dr. Saab. That after surgery, because we recently took the surgery, how we retain that same position? Is it possible in hikmah, or we can some treatment part? But I feel it's not coming on the same position before as.
What did you have done?
Operation, cervical or something here, like.
Cervical fusion?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Wow. So you're not able to move in the same way?
Moving, but not like the same thing as.
Same thing with my leg surgery. I had 3 surgeries, but I'm not feeling like before.
In hikmah, something is it?
Well, look, there's some things that are irreversible, right? Alhamdulillah for the surgery. I'm sure you have a lot less pain than you had before if it got to that point.
No, it's finished.
Alhamdulillah.
No
That's
pain.
wonderful. So that's a great gift from Allah Ta'ala. So at that point, if we were talking 20 years ago, a lot we could have talked about. And alhamdulillah, it's just, we're not here I don't want to make you feel bad and don't want to diminish hope and stuff like that. Inshallah, there's things that you can do, inshallah, with your physios and stuff like that, to regain as much range of motion as you can. And you can cultivate that. It's something to cultivate. But it's something also just to recognize that, alhamdulillah, like I have a serious condition over years of misalignment. And by the fadl of Allah, I was able to treat it. And I lost a little bit of range of motion, but I am pain-free and I can go, can you still go into sujood?
No, I'm pain-free now, no pain.
You can't go into sujood?
Pray. I can pray.
You can pray?
Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
Everything I
alhamdulillah,
can move,
so this is...
But a little tight, like...
It's tighter, yeah. So these are things that you work with your physio, you know, these are things that maybe you work with your osteo. I mean, these are things that you can cultivate capacities for. But also recognizing that, you know, expectations to go back to how when you were 15 years old, pre-surgery, is not fair. But like, know that Allah Ta'ala is Arhamur Rahimin, and the body is very resilient.
Yeah.
The body is very resilient. You know, you see these trees that get chopped and then they'll kind of grow like around the chop, and this is how the body can cultivate. You've been maybe chopped here a little bit. It's a high force surgery. Is a very high force, and to cut into the integrity, the unity of the body is a big thing. It's amazing that we can do it. I mean, these surgeons sometimes do miracles. It's unbelievable. And I'll never, you know, denigrate that. You know, you don't know. One of the first lessons I learned from Hakim, he said, don't ever talk bad about allopathic doctors. You know, we can be skeptical and the critical and certain things, but as people, I mean, these are my father, my friends, you know, but the bubble I live in, many of our people in our community and stuff like that. And they mean well, they're sincere. They just, this is what they know.
Their philosophy is different, that's all.
Sorry?
Their philosophy is different.
The philosophy is different, yeah, exactly. So different philosophy. And there's a place for it. It's understanding that there's also a capacity
I think that model which you have talked about, 7 layers of that, I don't think so that is described to the people. If they're doctors, they know that you have the appreciation of that.
He described it because he is trained in that aspect.
But the doctors are level
they need to be educated for
I can
that.
actually ask any GP here what a naturopath does, osteopath does.
They don't want to talk about it.
They have no idea.
They have no idea.
They don't want to talk about this. Honestly, yesterday, my brother is a surgeon, and my son is a doctor and all that. When they knew that I'm going to come here, you know, so again, and my wife is a very pro-natural thing, and she was so much advocate for that. And they were making fun and all this and that. That's the reason we live in that form.
I wish they would have come. We would have had.
You guys have more at home every day.
And my wife, even she believes that the cat is sitting on our bed, sleeps. That's a good thing.
I think
This is a positive energy she brings in.
I think Dr. Mazen might have to.
Thank you very much. That was very lovely of you.
One quick and last, because it's very common. What can we do about high blood pressure?
What can we do? High blood pressure?
That was the gist of the whole thing. What we are saying, high blood pressure can be many different things. Again, if you change your lifestyle, as Dr. Mazen said, so you have the lifestyle, you have the food, you have the pretty much. Think of it this way: if I put something here like that, what would happen to my blood pressure?
Increase.
Right. So, how many things in the body that are doing that? Right. So if you have your stomach, you have all the body that's got all these different lesions or the dysfunctions. How many things will have it? We don't know. Now the other thing is, if your lifestyle is better, diet is better, your high blood pressure should go down. It's again, address the whole thing.
Yes.
Okay,
so there's no magic pill.
Yes.
Okay, inshallah, we'll probably wrap up.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, there's a lot, I think it's like 2 hours, 3 hours, so yeah, Dr. Mazen get a lot of time, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Mazen.
Well, whenever, inshallah, maybe when you're back in a year or two, then definitely we'll organize something.
I'd love to see you again. Whenever you are here, please give us yours. So I can treat you, so show you what we do.
I'd love to ask you back home. Forgive me. Can I get your number though?
Yes.
Your contacts?
Yeah.
Where's your clinic?
It's in Gladstone Park.
Just across the road.
Not far.